Hi, I'm Carrie. Welcome to my channel. Today's video, we are looking into my top decks of 2024. This one is focused on all tarot, and next week should be focused on all oracle if plans go accordingly. So these aren't necessarily decks I bought this year. They're decks from my collection that made some sort of impact on my practice in 2024. Whether it was an impactful reading that I had with it, a deck that changed my perspective on something, or a deck that I had wrote off that then decided to work with and ended up blowing me away. That was my idea or my thoughts when I was picking these decks. The ones that really stood out as I thoroughly enjoyed working with them and really can't wait to work with them again. And I'm going to do them in order of the decks that I've had the oldest to the newest, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they rank one over the other. That's just the easier way for me to show them. So the first deck that I'm going to talk about, that I've already talked about just last month, and that deck is my Heaven and Earth Tarot by Jack Sephiroth and Jamie Elford. I did buy the boxed edition of this one. This is Lo Scarabeo, and I purchased it off of Llewellyn. I bought this deck in 2022. That isn't necessarily when it came out. I don't exactly know the date that it came out, but that's when I purchased it. I purchased it in 2022 and I did nothing with it. I looked at it. I thought, oh, I don't know if this deck is going to be for me. Put it away, and honest to God, I don't think I ever touched it again. I may have done one or two readings with it, couldn't connect with it in any way. If you happen to watch my decks of descent, I gushed about this deck, and it was during one of my past life readings that I did this year in 2024, where I used this deck, and that was the game changer for me when it came to this deck. The way this deck spoke to me, the way the cards wove together, the messages that were coming through. And when I saw the deck as a whole and a huge spread that I had on the table and the way it looked, first of all, it was gorgeous. And second of all, like I said, it was just so well connected, and I could see every strand that wove together in that reading. It completely changed my mind about this deck. So I had put this in my video, Decks for Descent, because I really do want to work with this over the winter season. And I just love everything about it now. And I have a hard time, I should say, seeing all the symbols on the bottom, like without using a magnifying glass. And if I remember correctly, they're not well mentioned in the guidebook. So I do have to look up what some of those mean, but I'm not going to let that hinder me or stop me from using this deck at all. And I did say in that Decks for Descent that this deck is currently filling the void for the Darkness of Light Tarot that I really do want to have in my collection, because I think that's another deck that's beautiful. That's an independent deck, but currently it is out of print. And I'm just waiting for that to come back into print, if it even does. But this one fills that void right now. This one gives me what I need in regards to that energy. So the next deck that made an impact in 2024, and why it is on this list, is the Unofficial Shitty Tarot, and it is created by Heidi Page and Ashley Brock, illustrated by Matt Edwards. This is an independent. Honestly, I do not know if this is still available or not. And this was featured in my one video. Oh my gosh, what was it called? Neglected Decks, I think was the title of that video. And I talked about how I never reach for this deck. I never use it. I didn't know what to do with it. I'm a huge lover of the Schitt's Creek series. It was one of my favorite series that was on TV, although I didn't come to it until it was on the streaming services. And I have watched it a couple times through, and David is like David and Maura are like my favorite characters on there. But anyway, I wanted to have this because of that, because I loved that show so much. Same reason I own the Friends Tarot. But then I didn't know what to do with it, because the voices of the characters do come through for me because I watched that show, like I said, 2 times through or whatever. So I can hear their voices, their sarcasm and that kind of thing when I am reading with this deck. But it was, when I was using it, it was just kind of falling flat. And then I did that neglected decks video and had some suggestions in that video about what to do with some of the decks. And I was needing to look into some, or needing to do some, I guess, readings about interpersonal relationships that I had going on. And someone had suggested, why don't you pull out your Schitt's Creek Tarot? And I started using this for relationship readings, friendship type readings, co-worker readings, that sort of thing. And that's when this deck started to shine. This deck is the best for relationship readings. It just really calls everything out like it is, and with that little bit of sarcasm I feel because of the characters and everything that are on the cards. And so now this is the deck that I go to and went to many times this past year to look into friendships, to look into relationships with others, family relationships, those kind of dynamics and everything. And I got the best readings from it. So this is why this is a standout for me this year. Another deck that was a top deck for 2024, the Fifth Spirit Tarot by Charlie Claire Burgess. This is the one that is put out by Hay House. This used to be, or was, an indie deck, and now it's published by Hay House. Anybody who has been here in the 2 years that I've been on TarotTube has probably heard me say numerous times that I am not a pip deck person. I don't own Marseille decks. I don't really own pip decks, and the couple that I do own, I rarely use. But there was just something about this deck, even though it is pip-ish, there was something about it. I wanted it in my collection. Did I say I picked this up in 2023? This is another one that I picked up then. So I've had it for over a year. And I use it, I don't know, maybe in a couple readings, maybe a handful of readings when I first got it, and then just kind of put it away. Not that the readings weren't good, I just wasn't sure how I was feeling about the pippish style to the minors here. And then I really dug into this deck this year. I really looked at the images and what they meant in relation to the card, you know, in regards to like the pip style or the semi-illustrated pips. I don't know, what do you, minimal pips? I don't know what you would call this. And I clicked with it immediately, which is different for me because I don't usually connect to cards that just have like the 6 cups on the card. I don't, or the 3 of Swords that, you know, there's needles in that around it, but it's just the heart there. Or this 3 of Pentacles that doesn't really show any people in it. I like heavily illustrated decks. So when I really got in-depth readings, or was able to go beyond the minor images of the cards, and it didn't inhibit, is that the word I'm looking for? It didn't hinder the readings in any way because these cards are so minimal. It like brought me around to loving pips. Now, I don't know, I can't go as far as to say that I would own a Marseille yet, but this is like softening me up, I guess, towards the more pippish style decks. And the readings I got with it were just phenomenal. So yeah, this is another reason, or this is a reason why this is my top 2024 decks. The next top deck for this year is Tarot for the Great Outdoors by J.Q. Gordon and Charisse Steber. And this is mass market also. I picked this one up in 2023, took it out of the box, saw how flimsy and cruddy the cardstock was at that time, and put it right back in the box and never took it out again. Then this past spring, I think it was spring, it might have been early summer, I was looking for a deck to use in some client readings and some client guidance posts and that kind of thing. And I just kept being drawn to this one in my cupboard. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a chance. And I was really surprised at how well I like this deck. This deck strays quite a ways away from an RWS traditional imagery and that sort of thing. But I was able to not only see parts of the RWS in the images, but it really just like let my intuition run rampant with this deck. So I really enjoyed it. And then I told Robin how much I enjoyed this deck, and we ended up doing a deck study together from Robin's Reflections, and we did a deck study on this, and seeing her take on the cards and sharing mine, there was things I was able to see and pick up on. And this deck is magical for me, really, because I wrote the whole thing off as I'm not going to be able to use this. It's just going to sit there in my collection. But no, it is a fantastic reader, and I don't even mind the cardstock. And I use this a lot over a 2-month period for so many readings. I was shuffling it all the time, and there is like no wear and tear on the cardstock whatsoever. I heard rumors that they were reprinting this in a different cardstock. I don't know if that's right or not, but I am so glad I decided to pull this out and start using it this year. And I'm so glad that I did the deck study with Robin, because it just added another layer to this deck, and it is a top favorite. Another top deck this year. This was purchased the very end of 2023. Matter of fact, I think I got this around Christmas time, is when I brought this one into my collection. This is The Influence of the Angels Tarot by Jody Baginski-Barbesi, created with Karen Baginski. This is US Games. It's another mass market. Oh my gosh, this deck, it just has my heart. I do not read with this deck for anybody else. I used my Touchstone Tarot and my Golden Tarot, which those could have been in this video also. But since I had this one, I thought I would just forgo the other two. But those decks that are similar in nature as far as imagery and that, I use for clients. This one is saved all for me. I love the images. I love the guidebook that comes along with this, where they give you that little bit of an angel message in the guidebook also for each one of these cards. And there's an angel somewhere on each one of these cards also that you can, you know, look for. This is a great connector to my divine team. This is a great connector to my spirit guides and to that angelic energy without being bathed in like Radley Valentine's angels. There's a different energy between his angel decks and this angel deck. And I nothing against those decks, because I have those and I love them. But those angel decks are a little bit positive lit for me, where this is, you know, a more well-rounded typical tarot, but still feels like that angelic energy to me. I hope what I'm saying is making sense to you right now, because that's how I feel about this deck. And it's really special, and I use it a lot in spirit guide readings for myself. And because of the connection that I developed with it, working with it, numerous times over 2024. That's why it's a top deck, or one of my top angel decks that I have in my collection. The next deck that is a top deck for 2024 is the Modern Love Tarot by Ethany Dawn. And this I purchased off of Amazon, but from her Amazon store. So this is an independent deck put out by Ethany, and I'm pretty sure she was retiring this tarot. So I don't know if she has any of these left or not, but I am pretty sure that this was one of the ones that was kind of a get your hands on this year. There was a video, shoot, which I cannot remember whose it was now, in February, that I saw talking about this deck. And it was that video that made me take a double look at this deck, because this deck was never on my radar before at all. I can't even recall when it originally came out of even looking at it as, oh, that's a possibility that I might like to have that. And then I thought, well, this would be a great deck to have to do relationship readings on. That's what I thought when I purchased it. And then this deck said, oh no, we're going to show you what we're here for. And the readings I did with this were so fabulous. And it started bringing forward mediumship messages, not readings, mediumship messages in the readings and everything else. And I was like, okay, this is something special here. So I'm not just using it for relationship readings, although it is a fantastic reader for that. It has become something more to me. And the way that it spoke, bringing forward those mediumship messages for some clients and everything, was just so lovely and beautiful. That, let me see, I think I passed the one up. I'll never forget this one that had come out for a client, and her father was coming through and wanted to talk about her tattoo, and then reminding her of the strength that she had and that kind of thing. So this is just beautiful, and I was using it so much that I had to force myself to put it away. And this Five of Swords card is, first of all, hits home and is just, I think, such a powerful image on that Five of Swords. But yeah, I love everything about this, and I couldn't imagine not having it or not using it. And it's a really special deck now. This is another one. Look at that. In my collection. So I am so glad I took a chance on it and purchased it, because I love it. And like I said, I'm pretty sure this is one that she was retiring. So I don't know if she has any left on either one of her shops, her website or her Amazon shop. The next deck that made a huge impact this year, and I purchased it this year also, is the Aronburg Tarot by Steve Aronburg. This is a US Games deck. Oh, this deck was one that, I don't want to say made me nervous, but made me a little bit nervous when I decided that I wanted to get it. Because it's out of my comfort zone. That's the only reason. It's out of my comfort zone. It's all these zoomed in images on these cards, so you don't get that full perspective of what an RWS image is, and you just have to go by these zoomed in images. And I'm sure everybody has seen this deck by now, but this became a fast favorite. A very fast favorite. This is another one I did a little tiny deck study on with a group of 3 of us, maybe 4 of us, in regards to this deck, and enjoyed it thoroughly. Also, it helped me bond to this deck even more, because it gave me everybody else's perspective. I got to see how they felt about the Empress card and what stood out to them and what things meant to them, or how they may have viewed this Knight of Wands, you know, where you can see a little bit of a glimpse of him, but it's mostly of the horse or whatever it was that they decided to express that stood out to them regarding this deck. And it was great. It was great seeing others' perspective in regards to that. I bonded to the deck pretty quickly. I thought I would have a hard time because I thought I would miss some of that symbolism, some of that further out imagery to give me other things to go on, to spark my intuition, to, you know, maybe help me see the bigger picture. But no, I didn't miss any of that. Seeing these cards close up brought something else to my intuition, brought something else to the reading, narrowed my focus, made me think of things a little bit differently because the imagery is this close-up perspective. I couldn't tell you a numerous amount of readings with this deck for clients. I used it in guidance. I did readings for myself with this deck and everything, and it never disappointed. I never was confused about what it could mean because the imagery was close. It spoke to me plain as day as any other RWS deck, as any other RWS deck would. So this had to be, look at me, just putting cards all which ways. This had to be listed as one of my top decks for this year because this one is really something special. The next deck that happened to be a standout in 2024 is the Inner Voice Tarot, a tarot deck of affirmations. This is written and illustrated by Laura Carl. Wait, I can't read that. That's so tiny. I think it's Laura Carl, and put out by Unity Books. This wasn't even on my radar. I picked this up in 2024. I didn't know anything about this deck at all. I happened to see it talked about or walked through maybe on Robin's Reflections channel, and that's what, it was a Robin made me do it kind of moment. I thoroughly enjoy this deck. Now, I am going to say I'm not too fond of the cardstock. It is very thin, but this deck was surprising because, yes, it's like an affirmation on every single card. But you get, like, here's the Three of Cups. So it's the Three of Emotion. This is your imagery. My heart is filled with joy. Then you have a celebration, and friendship up there is like your keyword that kind of bring you into those RWS meanings. And when I used this, I think if I remember correctly, I paired this with an oracle and an additional tarot. And I really did love the readings. And this is a shocker. This is a deck that really shocked me of how much I enjoyed this, because this is not your traditional tarot. Again, it says a tarot deck of affirmations. So I really wasn't sure where to put it. Do I put it in tarot? Do I put it in oracle? But it is a full-blown tarot with its 78 cards. So I'm so glad I was heavily influenced to pick up this deck, because this is a real gem in my collection. Here's the Fool. I find joy in the journey and its potential, new beginnings, and adventure. So the deck is a little renamed on some of the cards, but you know, you can figure it out really what they are. So Queen of the Mind, this is Queen of Swords, perception, certainty, by the light of divine wisdom, I know the way to go. It is really, really fantastic. I've never seen anybody else talk about this deck. I saw it one time and one time only, and that was on Robin's channel. So I wanted to make sure that I added this in as a standout this year, because I was pleasantly surprised with the way that it read, with how it worked so well with other decks, how I was able to use it, like I said, with an additional tarot on top of that. So yeah, this was a standout. We are down to our last 2 decks, so we are almost finished. My next to the last deck as a standout, as a top 2024 deck, is Earthwoman Tarot by Tarn Ellis, and this is a low Scarabeo deck. So this is another mass market. I'm running out of spaces for my boxes. The reason I am listing this as a top deck is this is a deck that somehow just sings with my soul. I don't know how else to describe it. It has just blown me away on so many different levels. First of all, the artwork is stunning. I cannot get over how rich and vibrant these cards are. It does not bother me at all that the people on this deck have no faces. I thought that it might, but it doesn't. And the thing is about that is I like to use the faces, the expressions, the way people are looking and that on the tarot to add to my reading as another element of the reading. There might be something on one deck and the expression of how the person was painted, drawn, whatever on that deck that might spark my intuition and lead me down a whole other path. And this one having no faces, I thought, well, maybe I'm going to have a little bit of a difficulty with that. But I didn't, because their body language says it all. I don't need to see a facial expression on any of these people, on any of these women, because like I said, their body language says it all that I need to know in regards to the card, regards to the meaning, the imagery, etc. So I don't miss the faces at all. And when I said this deck sings to my soul, it really does. I've been kind of leaning more into the divine feminine. And this deck really pulls me into that. I'm trying to connect more on a regular basis with that divine feminine energy. And this is the deck that I go to for that because, whoops, it's just absolutely stunning. I've said numerous times when I have showed this deck on my channel that I don't feel that videos do this deck justice. I think it is so gorgeous in person. And like I said, the card and the imagery is so rich and vibrant in person that I don't think that can translate well in the videos. So this is a standout favorite. It was an immediate bond between me and this deck, and I had to include it as a top 2024. Okay, my final deck, my final top tarot of 2024. Can you guess what it is? Put your guess in the comments below. Because if you watched my November wrap up, I talked about this deck and said it was actually going to be in this video. So do you remember which deck that was? Okay, here's my top deck, or part of my top collection of 2024. Oh my God, I'm getting tongue-tied. The Wandering Star Tarot. This is the mass market edition. It is 80 cards and it is by Kat Pierce. And it has those 2 extra cards, the Morning Star and, oh shoot, I forget what the other card name is. If we come across it, I'll point it out. One card means yes, one card means no, but they do have additional write-ups in the guidebook. I was hesitant about purchasing this deck for a very long time, mostly because of some reviews that I had heard about it. But there was something about this deck that just kept drawing me towards it. And I would fill my card up on Hay House and always exclude this deck. And again, I was being drawn back to this deck. Finally, I have only owned this 2 months, 3 months maybe. I couldn't pass up the 50% off for this deck, and I thought I'm going to try this out. And then I could have kicked myself for, here's one of those additional cards. Then I could have kicked myself for not trying this deck out sooner This is a complete gem in my collection. I love the images on here. I like the keywords that go around the outside of the deck. I like the color palette. I like that it's so colorful, because I actually use that when I'm looking at the cards in a reading. I'm seeing how many times maybe this bright gold shows up in the cards, where it shows up in the cards, does that play a role, that kind of thing. Because it's so colorful, that kind of thing really sticks out to me. I thought it would make it too busy, you know, with all this extra coloring, you know, everywhere, all over the place. I thought that maybe that would make the images too busy, and it doesn't. It doesn't hinder the reading in any way. It doesn't distract me in any way. And the readings with this have been so lovely, so spot on, and surprising. I was surprised what an easy reader this deck was. Sometimes a keyword will jump out at me just right away as soon as I look at the card. Other times I don't even notice them. They just fade into the background, and I pay no attention to what the keywords are saying anywhere around the border of the images. And they're all in all different places. Also, like right here, it's like around his crown, it's in that circle here, but here it's like up and around her chair. So they really are in different areas. Here it's along the boat, the edge of the boat. But yeah, I thought this would be distracting, but it's not. It's very subtle. I thought all the coloring was going to be distracting, but it's not. It plays a role in the readings that I've been doing with it. And I don't want to put this deck away. Here's the other one. This is the No card. It's the Creator. This resembles the Tower just a little bit, I think, if I remember correctly in the guidebook. But yeah, I didn't want to put this deck away. I didn't want to stop using it. I didn't want to move on from it, because I enjoyed reading with it so much. And when I don't want to put a deck away, I know that deck is a top deck, is a special deck, is going to become my go-to deck for certain things. And that's what this one became. In the short amount of time that I've owned it, just the couple months that it's been here in my collection, it became that go-to deck of mine. So that is all the tarot for my top 2024 decks. I am going to do another one of Oracle. I don't know if I'm going to have 10 for that one or not, but we shall see. I want to hear what you are labeling your top 2024 decks this year. You could tell me in the comments below, or maybe I'll make a hashtag. I haven't done a hashtag in forever, and the first one I did, I don't think anybody responded to it. So you don't have to do 10. You can do as many as you want to, but what are your top 2024 decks that made a huge impact in your practice this year? It doesn't matter when you bought them. It's just how it impacted you that made that deck something special. If you want to do a separate tarot and a separate oracle like I'm doing, that's great. Or if you just want to combine it all into one, you can do that too. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you being here. If you like the video, you know the drill. Thumbs up, liking, subscribing, and all that good happy stuff. And until I see you next time, bye.